Hello friends and welcome to Sustainable Prepping, your home for fear-free emergency preparedness and a sustainable life. My name is Brecky and today we're doing another laundry chat. I have a ton of laundry, and if you have watched my day in the life-ish video with me, I don't know when that's coming out in Vlogmas, but you'll know I had a ton of laundry to catch up on. There were sniffles that went through my house. We are washing everything, all the sheets, all the clothes, all the everything. So now I need to fold all of it. So I've got my dishwasher running, which you might hear. I've got the laundry running, which you might hear. We're going to take a few minutes and we're going to chat while I do the less than fun but necessary task of folding the laundry. So grab yourself a warm drink or a cold beverage, wherever it is, whatever sounds good to you. I have a cup of coffee and we're going to just have a chat. If you're new here, I want to say a great big welcome. I'm glad you found the slice of the internet, and if you're not new, welcome back. Friends, if you like my videos, it'd be awesome if you liked this video and subscribe to the channel so that you never miss any of my content. And if any of my videos are ever awesome enough that you would like to share them, please do. Share them on your social media, send them to a friend. That is how I grow. I'm a one-woman show, so all the support I can get from you helps me to keep making more fear-free content. All right, so for today's video, we're going to be talking about my homesteading philosophy. I had really good conversations over on the laundry chat about how I got into emergency preparedness. And so I felt like I talked about the emergency preparedness side of things, and I briefly touched on homesteading because I think they're related. And so I wanted to talk about my homesteading philosophy. I think that there are several different takes on homesteading, and they range from the sustainable living, low waste mentality of, you can't get more locally grown than your backyard, right? And so from a sustainable living standpoint and a low waste standpoint, cutting out the middle men, like the multiple steps, really helps with waste consumption. That's sort of the one side. And on the other side, you have the I would say the first side is more liberal, and the second side is the more conservative viewpoint, which is, damn the man, I can do it myself. The system is inherently evil and it's oppressing you. And therefore, homesteading is a way to free yourself from the oppression of the system, whatever system it is that gets you interested in homesteading. And I fall somewhere in the middle of those two paradigms. I do think we have broken systems, but I don't think those broken systems are necessarily intentionally oppressive. I think they can be oppressive, and I think that they are necessary, and I'm going to talk about why. And I think that we radically have to change our consumption levels in our lives, and being able to produce something in your own life, whether you're producing your own energy with solar, wind, hydropower, whether you're producing your own food in some capacity, even if it's a tiny portion, whether you are producing your own body care products in order to have an alternative to the larger marketplace, I think these are necessary. However, I don't think that in our lifetimes they're ever going to replace the system for a couple of reasons, but I'll get into those in a minute. So I fall somewhere in the middle of those two perspectives, which is I believe in local food and local agriculture as a resiliency to the very broken agricultural system in the United States. But I also recognize that it will not replace the agricultural system in the United States. And if anybody is telling you that it will, that if we just have enough networks of backyard farms, we don't need big ag, they're selling you something. And it's probably a course on permaculture, and they're lying. Big ag is so massive, and it has so many subsidies, and it feeds so many millions of people that there is just not enough land currently that can be used regeneratively to replace big ag on the whole. Could we move in that direction? Yes, but it's going to take more than a lifetime to truly phase that out and to create enough resilient small farms that can bounce back in the face of this changing climate, in the face of the rising cost of feed, in the face of the cost of fertilizers. Like, there's just a lot of work there. So I want you to be cautiously optimistic if you're getting into homesteading because you want to have food in your backyard and you want to be free of the grocery store. I want to tell you right now, that's a lie and a myth that people are selling you to make money off of your optimism. And that really frustrates me because you burn out, you spend all this money and you don't actually make it back, and homesteading ends up becoming more expensive and therefore oppressive than when you were living a more traditional, standard American lifestyle, where maybe you were buying from farmers markets and you were buying in bulk and doing all these things, and all of a sudden you think you can do it all yourself, and then you can't, and you burn out and you fail. I am very skeptical of people who sell courses. As someone who sells a course, I'm very skeptical because I understand that you have to market. And the easiest tactic in marketing is fear-mongering. And a lot of people sell this fear-mongering. And you may not realize that it is fear-mongering because it's so insidious, right? But a lot of homesteaders encourage you to fear the system, fear the man, right? Fear the collapse of the system, or the unhealth in the system, and therefore the whole system is evil, and therefore you should buy their course, their book, their program, their platform to free yourself from the system. But how are you hearing about those homesteaders? You're watching me on YouTube. You're watching me on a computer or a phone or a tablet. How are you watching them? They have benefited from the system. They need the internet to keep running. They need people to live in cities to run the internet, to build the platforms, to maintain the social media networks. They need all of that. That's how they make money. I'm going to do a whole video another time talking about that. I don't want to spend this whole laundry chat complaining about professional homesteaders who make money off of your fear, just like emergency preparedness folks. But I want to say that I keep all of that in mind. Now, that's not to say I don't follow some of those homesteaders who make money from courses and who do a little bit of fear mongering. I absolutely do, because a lot of them are doing the work. But I want to caution you that homesteading is not going to replace big ag. Regenerative farming is not going to replace big ag. What it's going to do is offer resiliency to a flawed system. And that system is flawed because of capitalism, not because big ag, the idea of having large-scale agriculture, is inherently evil. Now, I will say monocropping is evil. The way we treat the animals is evil. The terrible stewardship of topsoil is evil. Like, that is incompetence at best and true dastardliness at worst. But the idea of larger scale farming operations is not inherently evil, in part because there are tons of people who don't live on enough land to ever feed themselves. And that has always been the case. A nostalgic understanding of Americans' history, where we think about everybody living on a farm, forgets that Philadelphia, New York, and Boston were always shipping cities and were always manufacturing cities, even in the 1700s. Even in the 1700s, we needed agriculturalists who fed the cities. So what does that mean for my philosophy of being a homesteader? Because it sounds like I'm pretty harsh on homesteaders. And I am, simply, again, because I don't think they're necessarily being genuine about what the goals of homesteading are. I think the goals of homesteading, for me, as someone who believes in simple living, in local food where we can, low waste where we can, resiliency in all areas, we need to approach this as the best of all worlds. And for me, homesteading is the best of all worlds, in that I want to be able to grow a portion of my food and have the ability to have truly local food, have the ability to preserve, to grow enough to have preservation of food, to have skills around gardening, and to provide a portion of my calories. One of my goals is to be able to provide about 50% of my family's calories in a year. And I think that's a really exciting goal to eventually get towards. We're not there. We don't have a backyard. We don't have any of the growing capacity even that we used to have when we lived in West Virginia. We are a super micro homestead because we're in a townhouse. So I'm not really growing a lot of calories, though I do plan on getting back into sprouting, which is something I did when I lived in California. And I do have one blessed little collard plant that has survived the deer who've been eating all of my plants. But to me, homesteading is not just about food production, and that's the sexy part of homesteading. It's about skills. And it's about pushing against a system that has told us that convenience and pleasure are more important than anything. And they have taken advantage of our buy-in to a convenience culture to fill all of our edges of time so that it's very hard to not rely on convenience foods and participate in modern society. And therefore, we have exhausted people who have a hard time building meaningful relationships, who have a hard time having a meaningful relationship with the land that they live on, the animals around them. They're very disconnected. And I think that homesteading is a way of combating that. It is a way of radically pushing against this capitalist idea that every minute of your day should be about consumption. Every minute of your day should be about productivity in a toxic sense. And every minute of your day should be about participating in money exchange. You know, homesteading is inherently anti-capitalist because you are not needing to participate as much in the system. Now, I want to argue here for a moderate approach to homesteading that balances a back to the land, hippie, live off the land and be groovy and screw the man and screw capitalism approach, and the angry, the man is oppressing you and you need to create alternative systems because the man is trying to own you approach of conservatives. They actually have a very similar lifestyle goal, just from different perspectives, different motivations. The moderate approach is one where we recognize that we need the systems. How many of us can realistically grow enough grain to produce all the bread that we need to feed our family in a year, or all the pasta that we would need to feed our family in a year, or all the oats that we use for oatmeal in a year? Most of us will never have the acreage to grow that level of grain, and we don't want to spend the labor, the intense labor of separating grain from chaff. That's a lot of work. That's what people did all day long. In the ancient world, in the pre-industrial world, man, that was all they did all the time. That is just, we're just talking about food production, but if you want to unyoke yourself from the system, you're also talking about having to grow your own fibers for garments, right? That's a huge amount of labor right there. You're talking about growing all your own potatoes, all your own spices, all your own fruits and vegetables. It is serfdom. And I don't want to go back to that. The system is going to exist. The system needs to be changed. And the best way we can leverage changing the system is by showing them that if they don't change, they lose out on participation. This is going to shift that system towards sustainable options, towards better treatment of animals and workers, towards better options for us and the planet, towards greater flexibility because we have built in resiliency. And when that big system fails, we have built resiliency because we can provide some portion of our own calories, some portion of our own fuel. We can support communities to have a better, healthier relationship with their environments and build resiliency in localized settings. I think it's a holistic shift, but if we come at it with this idea that the system is inherently evil, not flawed, but evil, I think we've just shot ourselves in the foot, because any participation in the system, which you're watching YouTube, so you're participating in the system, is seen as selling out or not doing homesteading right. And I just think that that is so short-sighted. So my view of homesteading is this push against the flaws of the system, and through that pushing against the flaws of the system, changing the system, building resiliency so that when the overarching big system fails, we have resiliency built in, creating a slower paced lifestyle that is less focused on convenience and pleasure and more focused on meaningful relationships and presence to each moment, and not to what's happening 10 steps down the line, what everything in my life can get me. And I fall into this trap all the time, you guys. It's something I struggle with, just like everyone else, okay? I'm not better. So what exactly is my philosophy if we're not going to be going through these poles? What does a middle path look like? And what does homesteading mean if homesteading is not, growing your own food and doing your own medicine? Like if it's not those tasks, what is homesteading? To me, homesteading is a mindset. And that's why you can homestead in an apartment. That's why I consider myself a homesteader in my townhouse, because homesteading is a mindset of pushing against mindless consumption, pushing against being strictly a consumer and not a producer, and pushing against the divorce between us as modern people and the natural world around us. I think ecologically, homesteading is a wonderful movement because it brings people back into intimate relationship with nature. And we can begin to see ourselves both as stewards of nature, but also as partners with nature, and how dangerous it can be to assume we know better than the natural world all the time. I think homesteading can help us understand that busyness does not equal happiness, that pleasure is not the same as joy, that convenience is not the same as quality, and to push against the hyper-consumeristic and hyper-capitalistic ideals of go, 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 consume, 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 work, 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 work in order to consume and consume and consume. And when you pull all that away, you have the skills to preserve your own food. You have the skills to cook from scratch. You have the skills to slow down. You have the skills to respond to emergencies. You have the skills to steward land. Then you don't need to rely on the broken system, and you can call out the brokenness and use your resources, right, to push and fix the system. It's why I don't think the move towards homeschooling and basically abandoning public schools is useful. I think it's actually counterproductive. We are collectivists, and this is where I disagree strongly with the majority of conservative homesteaders. We don't do anything on our own. We're never self-sufficient. You don't harvest all your own salt. You're not going to harvest all your own sugar cane. You cannot do it all. And if you are someone on YouTube, somebody is building YouTube out, maintaining it, maintaining the electrical grid that you need for the internet to function so that you can make money having people watch you on YouTube. And so this idea that you can go tough it out on your homestead, 40 acres and a mule, is a lie. It was a lie then, and it's a lie now. And we need community. Schooling is just one aspect. I could not do half of what I'm doing if I had to homeschool my 4 kids. There wouldn't be time. And they get benefit from having other adults that pour into them, interactions with kids. And if we stop abandoning schools, they would actually become more resilient places. Schools don't have to be the way they are now. We could radically change them and make them all Montessori or give people options. Like, there's so much we could do. But instead of trying to fix the broken things, we've abandoned them, thinking that there's nothing redeemable. When in fact, there's not only good and redeemable pieces, but they're necessary. And I think that this is one of the myths of homesteading is you can do it on your own and you don't need the system and you don't need anybody, and it's just you and your family striking out. Maybe you find some other homesteaders to help you raise your barn, but that's it. But that's not true. That's not real. And that's how you burn out. We've always been made for community. Humans are communal animals. And when homesteading is at its best, it is a collective move towards resiliency, towards healthier soil, healthier people, healthier communities. It's that social permaculture principle that I think can change the world. But when it's at its worst, it is hyper rugged individualism to the point of detriment to people, to animals, to planet. And it's not true. So my homesteading philosophy really is skills, mindset, stewardship of land, slowing down from the hyper-consumerism, pushing against capitalism, pushing against consumerism, and holding accountable the broken systems so that they can become better systems, or healthy alternatives can come into place to compete with those broken systems and therefore force them to change. And that we are building an emergency resiliency, that the more people who grow food in their backyard, the less likely we are to have an absolute collapse of our food system because there's at least calories somewhere. It's not going to replace big ag, but it could hold big ag accountable and make it not profitable to have bad policies. So it's a holistic mindset. It's pushing against the broken system, but recognizing that it can't be abandoned completely. Like, you might choose to, but what about my friends that are not able-bodied and can't live on a homestead? They need the system, right? I don't want to abandon them. So it's that middle road. And I think it's a hard one. But to me, good homesteading is problem solving, right? It's creatively tackling problems. It's creatively using your skills to figure things out and to not assume it's somebody else's problem. And I think it's that responsibility to yourself and to one another that is so appealing to me about homesteading. Anyways, before this video becomes entirely too rambly, I'm so curious what you think. What is your homesteading philosophy? If you're a homesteader, are you interested in homesteading if you're not already a homesteader? What do you think of my philosophy? I know there are people who will disagree with me on both sides of the spectrum, but I think that holistic middle way where we push against the things that are broken in capitalism, we push against the things that are broken in our hyper-consumerism world, we push against the system, whether it's the grid, whether it's schooling, whether it's big ag, and we force them to do better by creating alternatives that can compete with that system, not abandoning that system altogether, because frankly, we can't. I think that's the middle way for me of homesteading and taking personal responsibility while recognizing that I'm also responsible to other people. All of those pieces come into it for me. So I hope you guys are having a good day. I hope this has been some food for thought. Thank you for joining me as I have folded about 2.5 baskets of laundry. There is a mountain of towels that you guys didn't see me fold, but we've been working hard, and I hope that you're enjoying Vlogmas. Happy holidays. Be well, be safe, and until the next video, happy prepping.